Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to the 24th race of the season for the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. We're getting ready to go racing here at the home of the Yard of Bricks, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but not the Indianapolis that you might be most accustomed to, the Speedway configuration. Nope, we're running the road course configuration here tonight, the 14 corners. Could be tripping up some of these drivers here as we draw ever closer to the end of the regular season and closer to finding out who our playoff contenders are going to be. Here tonight, we're getting ready for 42 laps of racing in the Mug and Bun Grand Prix at the Brickyard. That should be a good one. Tonight is 50 drivers are scheduled to take the green flag in tonight's festivities. On the pole position is going to be the number 46, which we're used to seeing driven by Robert Dorman, but he gives way to Blake Reynolds, multi-time winner this season in the Grand National Series, and Reynolds going to put that number 46 machine on the pole position alongside of Parker White. Both these drivers were the fastest two in practice as well, so no surprise to see them follow up those lap times in qualifying. AJ Henderson, who had a solid outing last week, worked his way up through the field to finish up inside of the top 10. He's going to start third alongside Brandon Hawken, who just a couple of weeks ago came off of a road course victory at Tsukuba during one of the 3 stints of the Tsukuba Nationals. Jonathan Oates, your points leader, is going to complete the top 5 as 23 drivers elected to put down a lap time in qualifying, and as mentioned, 50 drivers are scheduled to take the green flag. So a lot of drivers rolling the dice with giving up possible good starting track position to start towards the back, and we'll see if that's going to play out in their favor or not. These drivers will have a competition caution that they're able to fall back on. That will be at the completion of lap 15, barring a full course yellow coming out prior to that, and then they will be turned loose to race to the checkered flag. Of course, being a road course rules and incident on track may not necessarily bring out a full course yellow, so drivers that have issues early will have that competition caution to fall back on. Drivers that end up having issues in the second half of the race, though, they're going to have to rely on other drivers ahead of them making mistakes to be able to pick up positions. And of course, as well, the gentleman's rule applies. If you don't know what the gentleman's rule is, if a driver feels they were responsible for on-track incident, they then wait for the car that they made contact with to fire back up, get that spot back before making forward progress. So we may see that, especially here in this area, the backstretch, if you will, of the road course. And this is one of the areas where it's the tightest corners, but I think the big area where we're going to see a lot of trouble is actually going to be the very first corner, turn 1, because you've got that long front straightaway that you carry a lot of speed down into a heavy braking zone, and saw a lot of drivers in practice really overshoot that first corner, and that front straightaway is pretty wide as well. These drivers might force the issue 3 wide, maybe even 4 wide going into that corner, so they're going to definitely have to be aware of where they are in relation to other drivers going into that first corner, especially here at the initial start of this race. Blake Reynolds and Parker White going to lead us down here to the green flag, and we are underway here in the Indianapolis Grand Prix. Down into turn 1 they go. You can see them all hard on the brakes there into the right-hander. Blake Reynolds going to take the advantage. Parker White slots into second. Brandon Hawkins going to move into third place, and Rudy Valentine's going to move up to fourth, leaving AJ Henderson and Nate Stewart to battle for the 5th spot. That's your first side-by-side battle as Stewart trying to get back to the throttle and swing around the top side. Looks like he might succeed in doing so, as he has a left-hander here to complete the pass. Jonathan Oates now trying to make his way around the 189. That would be for the 6th position as things really tighten up there. Nate Stewart was almost into the back of Rudy Valentine in the 52, but looks like the top 6, 7, 8, maybe even back to around the top 10. They're going to get themselves single filed out. We got a driver in trouble back there. Saw the 035 of Brent Pancari dropping back. Looks like he's using that little bit of runoff there to actually let drivers by. There's somebody up ahead of him as well that appears to be doing the same strategy. I think that's the 70 of Alan Balancino. So these drivers feeling that it's a little bit too hairy too early, and they don't want to be up there in the thick of it, letting these guys kind of settle it all out then make forward progress here. Let the mayhem take place out the windshield rather than right around in the vicinity that they're in. As top 3, 4, 5 all get themselves spread out. And it's a big gap back to Jonathan Oates. That's about 0.8 of a second off the back bumper. 5th place Nate Stewart as Blake Reynolds continues to show the way. Let's go on board here with our current race leader. Watch the wheel motion as he makes his way through the first couple of corners here in the Indianapolis road course. And I gotta wonder just what kind of a weird sensation it is for these drivers, and the fact that, you know, when you're driving the normal racetrack at Indianapolis, we'll call it the oval configuration, the speedway configuration, obviously, you know, you're heading down the front straightaway, you're preparing for a left-hand turn. Here in the road course configuration, you're running the front straightaway the wrong direction, theoretically, down towards what would be NASCAR turn 4 before you make that right-hander into turn 1. Scott Rankin joins me here in the booth. Scott, I mean, 2 laps into this, already we're seeing some aggressive racing, but for the most part, at least up here in the top 15, they've all settled out. Is that just with the knowing that competition caution's coming up here, so no need to force the issue and tear that race car up early?
I mean, I always talk about it, Seth. I mean, the important part of being a race car driver is knowing when to push, when to burn up resources that you have in front of you, because you never know when you're going to need them, right? In this case, when you know you've got a competition caution, you're going to try and pick up a couple spots, you're going to try and settle in. Ultimately, what you want to do at this point in the race is you just want to read the race. You want to read the people around you. You want to set yourself up for success down the line.
Blake Reynolds leading this race. Talked about the fact that Brandon Hawken ended up winning at the one of the stints of the Tsukuba Nationals. Actually, he won 2 of the 3 Tsukuba National races. He won the full road course, and he also won the go-kart short track 3rd race of that stint. The other driver that won the other event, the go-kart road course, is the guy that's leading this race, Blake Reynolds. So obviously a lot of experience at road courses up here inside of our top 3, 4, 5. You can even throw Jonathan Oates in there as well, as he's had some pretty good numbers at the road courses they've been to so far this year.
Yeah, and look, consistency is always going to be important as well, knowing what you can and can't do with this track on different courses. But having said that, the thing about going to Tsukuba is that it's such a different layout kind of track, and you mentioned the go-kart layout as well. I mean, that's just a shenanigans style layout, and that's the best part about it. But alternatively, you can't take as much from Tsukuba as you really might want to. You can have a look at maybe how some guys get on the brakes and how they handle the car under those sorts of pressure situations, but it's such a short track, and Indy is such a different track. It's flowing, it's faster, it's much more of a NASCAR styled road course, and it's a completely different skill set.
Just was checking back, and it looks like we do have a driver already out of the race. Might have been a start and park here tonight. We're used to seeing Blake Reynolds swap the 62 out of Speed Incorporated with drivers like Brian Mercurio and Ryan Vargas and Kyle Riley, but tonight it was Mark Sabetka that was doing the driving duties in the 62 car, and as we saw right there, he is not on the racetrack. He is currently back in the garage area, so he will be finishing this in the 38th position. It's interesting, too, because I mentioned the fact that only 23 drivers took time out of 50 drivers that looked like they were scheduled to start this race, but Sabetka's finishing in 38, so there's, 12 drivers that didn't even take the green flag.
Yeah, that's disappointing. I mean, in terms of field size, pace, and those sorts of things, look, I mean, at the end of the day, Indy Road Course is difficult, but look, I'd put Tsukuba up a fair way higher in terms of the difficulty scale. Like I said, this is a fast, it's a flowing track. You got to let the car calm itself down, turn it in, try and get the car to stick to the road like you really want it to. It's a great track. I actually think this is one of the really underrated road courses because it actually takes a lot of skills from the driver. There are sharp portions, there were sections where you got to really slow the car down, and then you've got that really fast flowing straight. You remember the issues from Formula 1 back, I think it was, 2008, where they had all the tire blowouts coming around turn 13, which is the oval section. You know, so it definitely, you know, if Formula 1 came here and raced, that's always a good marker of how the quality of a racetrack really is. And look, to be perfectly honest with you, I want to see this track on the schedule far more often.
And here, Sean Butler in the 32, 4th in the overall standings. Just ahead of him is Evan Rice running in the 11th spot. A lot of pressure on him as he's down there around that cut line, 15th in the overall standings. And it's interesting, too, because we kind of look at what the 5-week stint 2 weeks ago and then 2 weeks ahead. You had Tsukuba back 2 weeks ago. You've got the Indianapolis road course here today, and in 2 weeks we head to Mount Panorama in Bathurst that these drivers are going to have to tackle. So I think if you kind of compared all three of those tracks, this is I'll call it the easier of the three for these drivers here in these this 5-week stint with these three, not consecutive, but in very close proximity road courses.
You say that Bathurst is a difficult track. I mean, if you're born in Australia like I am, you're just born with Bathurst in the blood. So Bathurst is actually like the easiest track you'll ever come across. So, you know, for me, no problem. I look at Bathurst and it's more like a breathe in than the race went by, you know. So, but for you guys, yeah, you guys are going to struggle coming out to the Australian mountain. But look, I mean, it's again like I'm going to refer back to that difficulty. I think Tsukuba I'm just watching the 168 of Ashton Schleiss get it all kinds of messed up and sideways in the pack behind him, just try and settle in and find their way around him. That was not an easy moment for a fair few cars there. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, though, this style of a road course is difficult on tires for most cars. Like I said, Formula 1 had massive amounts of blowouts. These guys in Xfinity cars are just wandering all over the road, as the Xfinity cars will want to do. But at the same time, that is so difficult on the tires. You want the car to settle down. You want everything to be nice and cruisy and smooth. And this is one of those courses where the car just doesn't want to play ball.
Nate Stewart finally made the pass around Jonathan Oates for 7th. He was actually using the chrome horn in a couple of those corners, saying, "Hey, I'm faster than you. I want by." And Jonathan Oates says, "All right, go ahead," as he's now going to actually pull off the driver's right and let a number of other drivers on by. Not certain what the strategy is here for our points leader. Maybe these guys want to go and he wants to run his own pace. As you said, with how abrasive this road course is on the tires, might be looking to conserve those good years based on the fact that they've only got 4 sets, including the set that they started this race on.
At the end of the day, we're actually not going to wear through 4 sets of tires. If anyone uses 4 sets of tires, I'd be very, very surprised. Coming down pit road and taking that stop is going to be quite disastrous in terms of their overall, you know, race pace, and they're going to have a long way to climb back through, and getting those overtakes done is not going to be as easy as...
Sean Butler, we're just on board with him there as the back end snapped out underneath his 32. Everyone avoids him, though. A couple of cars going through the grass.
Wow, I mean, what did I just say about how difficult this place is? That's a down. That to me just looks like a downshift. That one too many downshifts that he's made, and car unsettled in the rear. Basically the revs were kind of too high. The locking forces that coming through the diff and the transmission basically just locked up the rear axle. And once that happens in most cars, they want to pivot. It's very difficult to save the car from that point in time. So look, I mean, you know, expected result when you do that, and it's one of the trickier things about racing NASCARs. When you come to a road course, you want to have, you know, a reasonable number of gears, and the reason why is right there. That's why NASCARs don't do well on a road course, and that's why the next gen cars have actually got a really, really good chance of being good road course cars, is because they've got that a lot less torque differential between the gears.
Drop Sean Butler outside the top 15, 16th. Is where he currently slots in after his recovery, and great job by everybody to avoid him as well.
Oh, yeah.
Could have been a lot of contact exchanged there had drivers not been aware that car was spinning out, and credit to him as well for getting that thing back down and just holding it where it was. That way drivers had the opportunity to swing around him, whether it be on driver's left or driver's right. As all that's been going on, Blake Reynolds, he had about 8-9 car lengths between himself and Brandon Hawken, but Hawken is reeling him in. These are two drivers that are, of course, battling in the Cup Series for the championship, coming down here running the Grand National Series. They got nothing to lose, so no doubt that these two, they're going to be mixing it up here until we get to that competition caution. I think the battle will resume even after we take that competition yellow.
Thing is, these guys need to just use a little bit of their heads at this point in time as well. You know, no fast repairs. So, look, any contact they make, they're going to have to repair down on pit road, and that's going to be disastrous towards their night. So something that they're going to be aware of is, look, we want to fight it out. We want to have a little bit of fun before this competition caution. That's what it is. Drivers are enjoying themselves out there as they damn well should be, because it's such a great track. But they need to use that little bit of caution. They need to hold back just a little bit, and not throw as an aggressive move. Go side to side through a few corners. Yeah. Maybe rub the side panels a little bit. Yeah, that's totally fine. But don't just dive bomb and expect it to stick, like we would normally see towards the tail end of a race.
So far, since the start, a number of drivers have made some very good forward progress. The highest driver to gain spots is Seth Noel. He's currently in the 15th position, gained 12 spots since the start of this race. Tyler Williams actually has also gained 12 spots from 31st now up to 19th. Andy Trupiano, he's up to 12th place from 23rd, so plus 11. And Noah Carmichael, who sponsored tonight's race, he is currently in the 22nd position from 32nd, so a net gain of 10 position for him since the start of this race.
Road courses, it's all about being nice, smooth, and looking after those tires. How many courses do we go to within iRacing, within NASCAR that are certainly like that? It's about knowing how to push the car, knowing where to push the car, knowing how to really be kind to those tires in different ways. And ultimately, what you're starting to see from a whole bunch of guys, and Blake Reynolds included, is that he's pushed out a little bit too far early on, and everyone else has sort of caught back up to him. So I don't know whether or not that's Blake pulling himself back, half a second a lap, or if that's the other guys behind him that are being a little bit kinder to their tires. So
Might have had an incident back there. I'm not certain. I noticed that 222 of Alex Kolonix, he was really slowing down on the telemetry. I think he may have had an issue there. I don't know where exactly it was, but it certainly stacked up this group behind him. The other driver that I think I also saw fading down the running order with him might have possibly been the 98 of Evan Rice.
Yeah, it was. I just went back and had a look. Alex Kolonix just went to turn into turn number 1, and at the same time, I think Evan Rice has probably just missed his braking marker by the barest of margins, and he's just right there. And ultimately, Kolonix has attempted to turn down, and then Evan Rice has realized he's going to hit him, so he's gone for the underside of Kolonix, and unfortunately that's right where Kolonix is trying to go, so it just spins him off the nose. Both drivers are back out and running again, and the benefit here from both drivers is that Evan Rice immediately just sort of gave the position straight back to Kolonix. So
Kolonix, of course, was a big player last week at Richmond, started on the pole position, led 31 laps of that event. Kind of got mired back in traffic when there was a lot of pit strategy going on in the second half of that race, brought it home in the 5th position. Not doing quite as well here today at the road course configuration of Indianapolis, as that incident drops him back to the 18th spot. Brendan Hawkins putting the pressure there on Blake Reynolds, though. He hasn't really made an attempt to pass just yet, but he's keeping the 46 honest, which says to me that this is more intimidation tactic than anything. Instead of trying to pass the 46, he's trying to force the 46 to look more in his rearview mirror than out the windshield, trying to make him make a mistake and then make the easy pass that way.
To be perfectly honest, that would work if it was you or me out there, Seth. I mean, I know I make a lot of mistakes when there's a guy breathing down my neck. I'm watching him a little bit more than I should be. But I think that you have a look at the quality of drivers that both of these two are. They know how to manage that sort of pressure. They've been around for long enough that they know what looking in the rearview mirror does to these sorts of guys. Yeah, sure, look, this is Brendan Hawken really trying to... Oh, I tell you what, both guys are getting a little bit sideways when they get back onto the gas pedal at this point in time. So they're both pushing. They both know that they want to be leading this field back to green after that competition caution comes out.
You talk about the most likely to make a mistake. I think I take the trophy in that one. True story here today. I was in a league race. A teammate of mine had just come out of pit road, had me trapped second place. I said, hey, I want to lead a lap. I want a bonus point. He lets me on by. I loop it around in turn 6 at Watkins Glen and don't even lead that lap. So, yeah, I think I got you beat on that one. Even when the teammates work together, right? Mistakes are made. Right. That's right, absolutely.
You know what really strikes me about this league, Seth, is that have a look at some of the courses that we've gone to. Like, Tsukuba should just never host Xfinity cars, yet we've been there. Bathurst is look, whilst it probably could host Xfinity cars, it's not going to happen in real life. I'm not expecting a whole host of NASCARs to end up over in Australia at any time soon. We have our own variants, what they call Aussie stock cars. They're very, very similar, basically just older configurations of trucks, ARCAs, you name the whole deal. So, look, these are difficult tracks, new environments for these guys, and basically the whole field is just out here enjoying themselves, and that's what iRacing and let's just watching the 89 and Brendan Hawken get sideways as well. Look, and that's what it's all about. It's getting back to the reason that we're all in iRacing. We're out here for a hobby. We're out here for having a bunch of fun. We're out here for trying something different, which is the benefit of a simulator.
Note as well, when I looked at the schedule when they announced it here at the beginning of the year, very rarely do you see... Oh, Brandon Hawken got the wall there, actually, on the front stretch coming off of 14, so he'll have some left side damage to contend with here. But, you normally don't end up seeing a stock car schedule, be so heavy in road courses. Normally it's the speedways, and you'll have a road course here, a road course there, but... obviously, we're being treated to the Indianapolis road course here today. We had Tsukuba a couple of weeks ago. We've got Bathurst coming up. But even before that, these guys were at Circuit of the Americas and Road America. Later on this season, we're going to be in Detroit at Belle Isle. So there are a lot of very technical road courses that these drivers have had to deal with, all sprinkled in the schedule. And they've been pretty plenty in number as well.
Look, you just said Detroit. My heart goes out to all these drivers. There are going to be some crumpled race cars at Detroit. That circuit is not an NASCAR circuit. You should not be taking anything stock car related to Detroit Belle Isle. Look, the reason for that, anyone who's ever been in a stock car knows how much bumps unsettle these things. Detroit is literally, how long is it? 2.5 kilometers? What, 2 miles? Something like that? Of bumps.
I think so, yeah.
If you've ever heard the term washboard road, which is a thing out here in Australia, you actually get basically the ways that some of the roads can get. It's literally like a washboard, constant, up, down, up, down, up, down, on the roads. That's basically when I think of Detroit, that's what I think.
Saw Andy Margot go a lap down. Yeah, just a couple of other road courses that they've either been to or are going to. They also were at Spa earlier on this season. Road Atlanta, that's a fun track. I've driven that in the NR Sim, and they're going to be going to the Charlotte Roval later on this season during the playoffs as well. Yeah,
see, all of these tracks are just like fun tracks, right? Road Atlanta, these cars would have struggled there for sure because they don't like the weight coming off of the tires when you're going over all of those crests. That's a difficult one. Road America's got sections of that, but it's not bad. It's 2 spots, so it's it's totally fine. So Road Atlanta is a completely different one, and the other thing is that it makes a lot of these guys out here in the field develop skills. You can't show up at a track like Road Atlanta, you can't show up at a track like Bathurst, Belle Isle, and just hope that you're good enough. That's not gonna happen. Those tracks, all of them, require practice. They require planning. They require preparation. They require knowing. A lot of the battle is knowing where to position your car and when to put it there and why. What you're trying to do with the car through all of those sections. So look, I mean, really good opportunity. If anything, I look at a schedule like this and I say this is really good from a driver training perspective. Yes, difficult, but I'm saying to a field like this, go into it not going for a result. Go into it trying to learn something out of it, trying to improve your driving behavior, because if you do that, you'll always come off as a winner.
Well, you just saw on the left side of your screen Jake Poulin leaving pit road. There he is in the Hellman Chevrolet, getting out just ahead of the race leaders. He just came to pit lane, made a pit stop. That was a scheduled pit stop because the ruling is, with the competition caution coming out on lap 15, that pit road is closed when the leader completes the 13th lap. Blake Reynolds was not yet around to start lap 14, so Jake Poulin was the only driver that elected to see if he could get to pit lane, get his service done before the pits were closed. So if he can keep that car on the lead lap ahead of that 46, no doubt he will stay out when the caution comes out and more than likely be leading us back to green on the upcoming restart.
Big important factor about that, and he come out right in front of the leaders. Ultimately, he's got fresh, cool tires on board of that that car. He should be the fastest car in this lead pack, right? Everyone else around him is really struggling for grip. Those tires are overworking. Didn't manage to keep it out in front, so ultimately he's going to restart at the tail end of the pack. He's forced to take the wave around or the lucky dog, depending upon what's active here.
So if you're Blake Reynolds, I mean, how
look at
desperate
Brendan
are you to
Hawkins.
get up there and put that 0-0 lap down before the competition caution comes out? Because if you don't lap him, he cycles around when everybody pits. He's going to be the race leader on the upcoming restart. If you put him a lap down, though, he gets the lucky dog and actually has to start tail end of the field.
Yeah, you definitely want to do that, especially if you can put a lot of pressure on. But then again, the 0-0, I think he's really turning the wicker up a little bit. He's turning the pace up. Sorry, you said 0-0. There was another car that just drifted back by the leaders at the same time. I thought it was the 0-4 that you were talking about. It actually wasn't. So the 0-4 is going to be our first car a lap down at this point in time. But yes, this is important. Now, ultimately, the 0-0 on the restart, he's going to drift back down the field like you wouldn't believe. But oh, he's locking up. He's locking up.
The left front big time. Open the door there for Blake Reynolds, who looks like he might have cut him a little bit of slack there, because I think he could have easily gotten alongside of him.
Yeah, but again, remember what we're talking about, risk versus reward? You got a competition caution that's coming out in half a lap. Yeah, you want to put pressure all over this guy, but the issue is, he's got fresher tires. He's going to be able to fight you for it.
2 car lengths, 3 car lengths now between Jake Poulin, his chances of staying on the lead lap, and the 46 of our race leader, Blake Reynolds, who has led every lap up to this point. When he hits the line, you'll see the caution come out, the competition caution for these drivers. Brandon Hawken and Parker White, they're in a pretty spirited battle for second in the closing stages here. AJ Henderson and Rudy Valentine right now hold the top 5 positions as through the final couple of corners, Blake Reynolds making a charge here on Jake Poulin. He's going to try to swing to the outside. Try and put him down. No, he lifted. He let him go. He would have had him. I think he would have had him for sure at the start-finish line, but he backed off, let Jake Poulin stay on the lead lap, and it might have been of the thought process you were talking about, with that Jake Poulin's going to be 2 to 3 laps older tires leading us back to green, so Blake Reynolds figuring, I'll pass him back then, rather than put him a lap down now and put him towards the tail end of the pack.
Yeah, so that's important in terms of race scenarios. Ultimately, from Jake Poulin, this is a risky move. That's what you're going to remember about all of this, right? Is that he's going to be slower amongst a pack of angry Hornets that all want that spot back. They all want to go for it as heavy as they possibly can. So there's multiple things that are going to be happening here on this restart. If he leads the field back to green, he won't lead the field back to the start line for the second lap. No way is that a struggling, searching kind of race. He's actually going to go ahead and cut a huge chunk out of the track just to try and catch back up sooner. And I think he's actually trying to take some load off of those tires as well. So that's cheeky from Jake Poulin. But look, I mean, the guy's got an opportunity here. He set himself up. What were we talking about earlier? Set yourself up for success. He has done everything he possibly can to do that. He recognized that he wasn't there in terms of overall pace right now, so he made some concessions to buy himself track position. Great move.
Our ticker does not show that the yellow flag is out, based on the fact that this was a manually called caution, an admin called caution. No incident bringing out this caution, and this was not a scheduled caution either as far as in the iRacing session. So these drivers are pacing themselves. They'll come down pit road this one time, and we'll more than likely line them up and go back green the following lap. We showed you the 56, the 056 actually back there of Luke Breitschoff. He is going to be the lucky dog here under this caution. The first car 1 lap down, as 32 cars were on the lead lap at the conclusion here of the first stint, if you will, before the comp caution. Andy Margot, Brent Pancari, they lost a lap during the course of this run. Taylor Lannon 2 laps down. Looks like we actually have 2 drivers in the garage area now. We already documented Mark Sabetka. Looks like Joe Burgee in the 60 also retired out of the race about 6 laps ago.
So a couple things I'm just flicking through, having another look through at the qualifying times and how things sort of played out throughout that extended race period. You got to remember, towards the tail end of that, Blake Reynolds actually ran away quite dramatically from the rest of the pack as soon as that lapped traffic. So he was handling the traffic really, really well. So should that play itself back into contention here, well, that may be a big limiting factor for his competition because he was right in and around those guys. Ultimately as well, coming to pit lane, it was a Parker White that was all over the rear bumper of Brandon Hawken as well, so he did a phenomenal job to drag himself back up into that sort of contention moment. And I really want to point out, Brandon Hawken was 0.6 of a second slower in qualifying. So I would say he either made a mistake during qualifying, probably one that's only cost him 2 to 3 tenths, or he is so much better on tires and tire wear, tire temperature, all of that's how he's clawing margin back to Blake Reynolds. Because if you look at qualifying, and qualifying is all she wrote, he should have him dead in the water. Should not even be close. But I think that Blake Reynolds is potentially either over pushing those tires, or alternatively, he's holding back a long way is the other option.
I just want to build off one of those points that you brought up there about Blake Reynolds' ability to work his way through the traffic when they were catching those lap machines. That kind of plays back to something that myself and Bronson Stafford observed when they were running the go-kart road course section of the Tsukuba Nationals, was his ability to make his way around the slower traffic. I mean, there were basically battles everywhere you looked, and it included the race leader having to make his way through a lot of the spins and the wad-ups that were taking place from drivers trying to recover from earlier mistakes, and Blake Reynolds did a masterful job of making his way through the traffic, still managing to keep his nose clean. So probably a lot of the experience that he gained from that chaotic race coming into play here with how he approached the lap traffic. A little bit more space, obviously, to work with, though, at Indy.
Yeah, look, when you're not racing at a go-kart track, suddenly the track is a lot wider. I've actually had the benefit of I've raced it on a go-kart track actually on motocross bikes, so they are tight, twisty, and the other thing is they are so, you would look at it, right? You go, oh, it's a tight little track. Oh, you're not running all that hard. You know, it's not really going to be all that physical. If anything, it's way more physically demanding because normally on most racetracks, something like Indy, right? You've got that whole big long stretch. We get to take a breath. All you're doing is you're really on the throttle. You're turning a little bit. You know, not super pressuring. Right? It's not super heavy. You got that kind of brake section, whereas go-kart tracks you don't really have that option. It beat me. I'll put it that way. The go-kart track beat me, hands down, beat me. Right? So here at Indy, these guys have got a lot more time, a lot more space, and that's a really big and important part of modern circuit design as well. Is making sure that there are straight line sections where the drivers have got options to, you know, check their mirrors, check everything's functional down the straight, tweak a few settings, you know, all of those sorts of things as well. So, oh man, we're set up for an absolute firecracker here, and with Jake Poulin leading the field. Well, you mentioned that pit stop worked. Where do you expect to see him after lap 1, Seth?
Yeah, that's going to be the big question because, you know, he had actually 3 green flag laps, if you count that. On those tires there, the 2 that were just prior to the competition caution coming out, and then the one that you documented of him trying to catch back up to the field after the caution had come out. So, just in his overall speed, it looked like he was running around the 15th to 20th position. I think we may see him fade back maybe out of the top 5 before the conclusion of the first lap, maybe even outside of the top 10 at the conclusion of the second lap here, just based on the fact of how I saw even drivers up inside the top 5 struggling on those old tires when we got close to the end of that run.
So just having a look back at lap pace, just for a really good marker of where he's going to end up. Ultimately, his fastest lap was just after he come out of that pit stop, a 1:34.2. Other than that, he was ran 1:34.5 earlier on in the stint, but he's pretty consistent about the 1:35 to 1:36 marker, right? Our leaders are running, having a look at Blake Reynolds' lap times, his best lap time in the race was a 32.3. During qualifying, ran a 30.8. So Blake Reynolds is definitely holding back and trying to conserve those tires as best as he possibly can. But that's still a 2-second differential. 2 seconds I mean, you got to look back. I would say he's going to pop out somewhere around the 15th. I'm looking at Seth Knoll to probably get past him. 132.9 was Seth Knoll's best lap. He's run 33s. He's probably a little bit more than a second ahead of him at this point in time. Okay, so Seth Knoll's probably a little bit too far back. I'm looking maybe Nate Stewart in P10 is probably where our Paulson is going to, well, sorry, our leader's going to end up.
We kind of got thrown off with just how far drivers could make it on fuel back at Richmond. We saw several drivers be able to make it upwards to the 100 lap mark with what they had in the tank. I have to wonder if this might be the only time these drivers have to hit pit lane based on the fact that they had a 100% fuel tank coming into tonight's event. Of course, they ran those first 15 laps with what they had, and we're going to be going back green with 24 laps to go. So it'll be interesting to see if that was the final time that they've been on pit lane, or if pit road still has a part to play in this race. But it will be Jake Poulin leading us back. Blake Reynolds will line up to driver's left in second. Parker White, AJ Henderson in row 2. Brandon Hawken and Tyler Gary in row 3. Then Rudy Valentine, Jonathan Oates, Andy Trupiano, and Nate Stewart are going to be the top 10 as we get ready to get this Mug and Bun Grand Prix at the Brickyard back under the green flag.
It's most important here, Seth, that these drivers go and make themselves a nice vanilla milkshake, because that's what they're going to have to be on. They're going to have to be smooth on those tires. Smooth and creamy, like a nice vanilla milkshake. Does Indy have a good milkshake bar? Surely.
The sponsor tonight, I did some research. Mug and Bun, they got some good milkshakes there. So,
ooh.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Mate, I tell you what, I think I'm going to have to get up after this broadcast and go get one, because, like, you can't sit here and talk about smooth, creamy milkshakes and not go want one, right?
At 11 o'clock at night, yeah, I could probably pass and wait until tomorrow.
Back to green.
Green flag waves once again. We'll see how they're going to be here down to turn 1 this time, now knowing that potentially that was the only caution they'll see here today. Wasting no time, it's going to be Parker White. He's going to take Blake Reynolds 2 wide into the first corner for second place. They were 3 wide further back in about 2-3 sections of the field.
Yeah, it's, what's happened to Brendan Hawken under this caution period. He's lost a lot of spots. Have a look at that. Everyone's gotten through the first couple corners. The first chicane, now off into this second loop. Completely and utterly clean. The racing's deep. It's competitive. These guys are pushing each other as hard as they possibly can, but, you know, there's options for everyone. Brendan Hawken lost a spot under caution on pit road. He's managed to grab that one back, and he actually saw Parker was really trying to put pressure on Blake Reynolds. That hasn't worked out. Instead, he's lost that spot.
They're riding on board here with the 18 of Matthew Zwack. Right now mired back in the 22nd position. Expected to see him actually a little bit further up in the field based on the fact he was a former pole sitter back at another road course at Monza. That was Ryan Pandicio, I think, behind him that almost looped it around as the rear tires locked up. 222 of Kalonix dropping back there, so he might have had an issue. Saw a lot of tire smoke there a couple of corners back.
My word! Jake Poulin just come back out on the oval sideways. And he's still leading. Like, he is still leading after those first lap. I didn't expect this. I honestly expected Poulin to be disappearing backwards in the rearview mirror of these guys, but they've fought on this restart lap, and it's really played into Jake's hands.
Very impressive there for Jake Poulin, our winner in the season opener at Daytona. He's currently 16th in the overall points as well, so another driver that's kind of hovering down there around the cut line for a playoff spot. Finally has to yield to the fresher tires of Blake Reynolds, and now we'll see just how much desperation there is out of Brandon Hawken to get around Jake Poulin. Not allow that 46 to open up any distance.
Yeah, I think I was about to say exactly that. I think this is so crucial for Hawken to get by, and he has managed to get by. He's lost next to nothing, because this could decide the race right here. How long they take getting around Jake Poulin. Now that those tires are up to temperature, you're actually starting to see the fall off come back in from how long he spent on those tires.
Trying to remember where it was at, but I believe that Brandon Hawken was a winner last season in the Grand National Series at a road course also. So very good at the rights and lefts. Poulin in third, and now Parker White will try to get up there to the double zero, get around him. He's got his hands full, though, with Tyler Gary. Tyler Gary had a very good run, a top 5 if I'm not mistaken. back at the full road course of Tsukuba in the first leg of the Tsukuba Nationals, and following it up here at Indy Road Course with another solid run, currently holding down that 5th position just ahead of AJ Henderson.
Everyone, like, honestly, the level of racing has been phenomenal here tonight. So many cars, so close together, all trying to race for positions, but showing a level of respect that I don't think I've seen in a good long while. Everyone's giving each other space. Somebody makes a mistake, they're allowed to gather it back up, and pressure will be applied to them, but they're not, nobody's forcing each other off. There's a lot of respect being shown between the competitors. Even Jake Pullins, look, I mean, everyone's understanding that, he's made a risky move by offsetting himself on tire strategy, and everyone is showing him respect, because even though it's compromising their race a little bit, the more important part is that everyone stays out there, and that's what we're seeing.
You can hear it, Ryan Araki, who's just outside of the top 20, gave up a spot to Alan Balancino, as I think we had an incident. Seth Knoll, he got a little bit wide in a corner there, gave up some spots, losing positions to Tyler Williams and Noah Carmichael, but he keeps it together. And now Jake Poulin all of a sudden is starting to drift back. Someone's in the grass. At the 48 of Andy Margo, I believe. Can't make out exactly who it was, but I think it was 48. Somebody was going through the infield grass there.
The 48 of Andy Margo, he's a long way back, so it couldn't have been him.
Let's see if I can figure out who would have
Wasn't the
been.
168 of Ashton Schleiss, potentially? Because that car stands out. We'll find out here in a moment. Whoever, just all of a sudden drops like a rock on the standings. Actually, it is potentially Ashton? No, Ashton was gridded up P8, so...
Not sure who it was. I think it was possibly a lap machine trying to get out of the way of the leaders, but I couldn't make out exactly who it was. But they were way off the course there if they were trying to let the leaders on by. Not certain who it was there, but nonetheless, going back there to what I was going to talk about with Ryan Naraki, he ended up not running last week at Richmond. Of course, Cosmish and No-Shoe took over the driving duties of the 0-2. Now, while that helped keep the 0-2 up there in the owner points, the team points, it did not give Naraki any driver points, and he lost 3 spots in the standings, falling down to 13th place. So that dropped him back down around the cut line after working his way up there inside of the top 10, the overall standings. So a little bit more work for him to do here down this home stretch of the regular season.
Just trying to find that car right now. But yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, these guys have got a job. You know what? It was Nate Stewart. Nate Stewart was the car that was out way out there in the grass. So he was a long way up there, and he just ended up just taking the cut. Just ultimately, in terms of his race scenario, it was far easier because there was a pack of angry cars that was following him behind him. To just fire off the corner and regather it at the exit of the staircase and try and re-pick it back up going down the straight, lose a couple spots, than it was to try and bring it back out. And remember what I was talking about respect earlier on. That's respect for your fellow competitors right there. You're not compromising their race when you're making a mistake. You're trying to keep the racing clean. That's a really, really good job. And look, to be perfectly honest, the driving standards here at FTF, they're always fantastic, and everyone has got that. Things are difficult for everyone, so let's not make it more difficult for each other kind of mindset.
And with the fact that Nate Stewart, even though he went off course, didn't gain any positions, I would assume that would not in any way ensue a time penalty for him in terms of course cutting or anything like that, as he currently holds the 6th position, trying to get up there to AJ Henderson, as we get a front row view courtesy of the points leader Jonathan Oates, who's currently running in 7th place. The guy that's behind him, though, I mean, if we're looking for a possible dark horse to finish up inside the top 5 today, Andy Trupiano. He's been under the radar in this race, but he certainly has been making forward progress. Started back in the 23rd position. He's now up 15 spots to 8th and restarted inside the top 10 after we went green following the competition caution.
Yeah, and I think he's just getting through there because he is just using that head. I think he's showing a lot of patience, really cool, calm, collective demeanor. He's recognizing that everyone, around him is struggling, and if he's just the one that's struggling the least, that's your way forward. That's your progress point. And look, I mean, we talked about the difficulty level of these tracks. You can't understate that, and that's what he's banking on. You know, ultimately, if everyone around me is making mistakes, if everyone around me is having issues, I'm just going to make sure that I don't have any of those. You don't need to show outright pace sometimes to get your car a long way up there. And Andy Trippiano, I think, has shown little bits and pieces of, he's shown a flashy, quick car, but also the ability to make sure that he's keeping the car on track at all costs.
Of course, for drivers to try and keep specific car numbers up there in the owner point, you'll see them in different rides during the course of different weeks. Now, we're used to seeing Casey Nemeth piloting the number 52, but our Monza winner Rudy Valentine doing the driving duty there is, that was Trippiano almost completely spinning out in front of him. Nice save by Trippiano, but the 52 out of First 4 Racing is 25th in the owner standings. The 78, which we're used to seeing Rudy Valentine pilot at Painter Slipstream Racing, that's 36th in owner points. So obviously, to make sure he was guaranteed to be in the race, taking an open ride here tonight that was higher up in points, was our former win from the season. Of course, for Rudy Valentine as well, he's, with that win at Monza, got a limited number of starts as opposed to all the other former winners from this season that are trying to make their way into the playoffs. So he is still on the road of trying to get himself up there high enough in the point standings so that way that win will count towards a playoff spot. Comes into this race 22nd in the overall standings.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if at the end of the day, if that's what his season's looking like, I mean, you got to rearrange yourself, rearrange a little bit of priorities, make sure that you're putting the time and the effort in to be as competitive as you possibly can. You've got to make sure that every single outing is about points, points, points. You've already got that win. You don't need to think about grabbing another win, right? You've got to just make sure top 10, that'll do it. Top 15, it's close, but it won't really cut it. You've got to make sure that you're pushing for those few extra points. That'll be his focus tonight for sure, and that'll be his focus going forward as well.
I got a question for you here regarding Jake Poulin, because we saw he was the only driver that went with the strategy of coming down pit lane just before the pits were closed prior to the competition caution coming out. Would he have made that move to pit lane to gain that track position if he was of the assumption that all these drivers would be able to make it the rest of the distance on fuel? Or would he have made that gamble feeling that he would still have to make another pit stop here in this second run and everybody else would have to come to pit road in this second run as well?
I definitely feel like he would be. Ultimately, he's given himself the strategy flexibility to throw another undercut, which means he's going to continue drifting back through traffic for the remainder of the race, but for a few laps, he'd be very, very quick. So I think he's made this move going, hey, look, we're going to have to make another pit stop, right? So ultimately, if there's no other pit stop here, I still think it's a good move because he was obviously struggling prior to that. He was way back in traffic, and he's put himself a long way ahead. He's bought himself a lot of track position, and he's bought himself a lot of direct position as well. Not just track, you know, he's bought himself racing positions as well. So look, ultimately I think he saw an opportunity and he went for it, and I don't think it really matters whether or not we were expecting another stop here. I just think this was a really smart strategy play he wasn't going anywhere by doing exactly what everyone else was doing, so he needed to do something different, and I think he's made it work.
Yeah, right now in the 12th position after leading us back to the green flag, and yet, you know, could be even a net gain of, 5 positions over where he was running when he decided to come to pit road. So, you know, still forward progress, still points gained, and of course very important for him as well, trying to secure himself a spot in the upcoming playoffs. We saw that great battle. We were on board with Tyler Gary as he attempted to get 3rd position away from Parker White, but not able to do it. And as those two got themselves side by side about midway down that front straightaway, they kind of stalled each other out, as is typical in the aerodynamics of speedway racing, and that brought AJ Henderson and Nate Stewart into this group. So a 4-car fight for the final spot inside the podium.
Yeah, it's going to be so important here too, Seth, to focus where are the important corners around this track. One of the most important corners is turn 11, getting a great exit off of turn 11. What that means is that you've got to back up the entry, you know, turn 9, turn 10. You've actually got to focus on making sure the car's positioned well. So you get a huge run down the straightaway, and you've got an option to overtake down here heading into turn number 1. So these drivers will be backing up turn 9, turn 10, just to make sure they can get that primary exit off of turn 11. So they're giving up, 2/10, potentially turn 9, turn 10, to try and make an overtake. But it's so difficult to get that overtake done. Like you said, the aero pack is just stalling things out. Look, these guys, everyone's struggling right now, and you got to pick your margins. Where is it worthwhile trying to push the car a little bit harder, a little bit faster, a little bit deeper, and make up some time? Have a look at the smoke that the leaders are kicking off with locked tires. You know, everyone's fighting. It's so close right the way throughout the field, Seth.
Brandon Hawken back up to the bumper of Blake Reynolds for the top spot. Last time I looked, he was running about 2-3 car lengths behind the 46, so he is back to putting the pressure on Reynolds for the top position. And if you're Brandon Hawken, let's do two scenarios here. Let's say, first off, that these drivers can make it the rest of the way on fuel. When do you start pushing the issue if you're Hawken to get around the 46? Or if these drivers do have to make a pit stop, do you force the issue before you come to pit road, or do you at least just keep them in close proximity and then wait for the fresh tires to give you the advantage and make your charge later on in the race?
Well, different scenarios mean different things. So Blake Reynolds, very, very strong on the freshest of tires, right? Seems to be able to push away a second-ish, about that sort of margin on the very, very early stages of the run. Fades back a little bit, towards Brandon Hawken the longer that run goes on, right? So Hawken's very good on tires. So ultimately, if I'm Brandon Hawken, I want to put the pressure on him now, and the reason for that is I want to force Blake to go for an undercut. What that means is Blake's tires towards the tail end of the race, when you're going to approach him again, are going to be at their worst, and yours are still going to be in this really nice sort of Goldilocks zone whereby you're not falling off massively in terms of lap time, right? So remember tires here with the road courses, we seem to get into this, the latest update on the tires, there's a quick period, a very quick period, and then you fall off into this real consistent level. And then at the back end of their life, they start to fall off again, right? So we're in that consistent period right now. The lap times haven't fallen off as massively as they will towards the tail end of the race. Now, remember, like I said, Brandon Hawken's strong during this period of the race. So he wants to force Blake to have to undercut him. And the reason why he wants to do that is because it makes his strongest section of the race even stronger. If he goes and he tries to undercut Brandon tries to undercut Blake here, I think that might play potentially back into Blake's hands, and it gives Blake, it takes away Brandon's biggest advantage over Blake.
Yeah, look at this. Hawken gets a nice run there off of 14. Tries to get to the outside drivers left of Blake Reynolds. He might have a shot at him here down to turn 1. He won't have the preferred line, though, as Brent's going to go a little bit shallower there into the right-hander, and looks like he'll hold him off. Of course, for Blake Reynolds, mentioned the fact that he is a multi-time winner here this season. 5 wins during the course of this season. And, that's Andy Margot right there in the 48 that almost nearly went into our camera there off of a turn 4. But Blake Reynolds, he's looking for his, theoretically, 5th win at a road course this season. He had wins at Road Atlanta, Spa, the Daytona Road Course, Circuit of the Americas, and then, of course, one of the races in the Scuba Nationals, the go-kart road course section of the Scuba Nationals. So this has been a guy that when it comes to the twists and turns, he has been very, very good, and he's got a very good track record this season. But Brandon Hawken, also a former winner. He won the overall Scuba Nationals and picked up his first win of the Grand National Series. So these are two road course gladiators duking it out. You got to wonder, though, because Parker White, Tyler Gary, they're actually starting to reel those top 2 in. What was looking like a mano-a-mano fight has now turned into a 4-car battle.
And I think that's just because these guys are so close together and they're racing so hard. Like, you see the gap's actually stretched itself back out again now because they've spent a lap nose to tail instead of spending a lap trying to fight each other, trying to shove a nose somewhere at any particular time. Because you've got to remember, anytime you attempt an overtake, both of you are compromised in terms of your overall lap speed. You both can't take the optimal line into a corner. So ultimately, you're giving up time, you're giving up speed. So which is why, cars will catch you in this sort of a situation. But it's also difficult from Parker White and Tyler Gary's point of view at this point in time. I think Gary's going to be a little bit more patient than anyone else in this queue. I think he really needs to work with Parker White, because if they've got a chance of really assaulting both of these leaders in Blake and Brandon, then their best opportunity is just to work together here right now for the next 5 to 10 laps, and then have a dive at him towards the back end of the race. Once you sort of confirmed because you want to make sure that you're in the draft range of these guys that are ahead. You want to make sure that you've definitely got an opportunity. Then you want to sling the move. Alternatively, Tyler Gary's probably going to be, of these guys, Gary's the one that can pull the undercut and have it be the most successful.
Talk about that undercut. We've got a driver on pit road. Brett Pancari in the 035, former winner this season from Talladega Super Speedway. And Justin Malello, I thought he was coming to pit road, but instead he actually had an issue there. Looks like that might have been off of turn 2 as he gets his car back onto the racing surface, spending a good deal of time out there in the sand trap.
Drivers struggle so far tonight. I mean, we saw Andy Margot way out, and well, he was so far out he was nearly in the camera, right? So that was an interesting shot, and I had a half heart attack when I flicked over to that camera for half a moment. So something you expect to see. It's actually a really good opportunity. Whilst we are at a road course, unfortunately, a safety marshal over at Brands Hatch over the course of this weekend has in England has tragically lost their life in a racing accident. And look, we might be simulator racers, and we do have the safety of driving from our own home, but a lot of us are heavily invested in road course stuff, and do just want to take the opportunity to shout out to everyone over there and the British Automobile Racing Club and everything that's going on over there. I hope everyone's okay and everyone's receiving, the best wishes. And look, it's a difficult thing, and we all know that racing is dangerous, and we accept that and we all support it, but still, it's still tragic when something like this happens too, Seth. Yeah, sorry to take the mood down a notch, Ashley.
No, absolutely. I was floored by the news as well, and so it's great that you bring that up. Yeah, absolutely. Our condolences go out to the family and friends of that track member, as obviously very, very melancholy news here that we received today. We got a couple of things to touch on here that took place in the last lap and a half. Saw Jake Poulin come down pit lane with 12 laps remaining, so obviously he could not make it on fuel and obviously wanted the benefit of fresh tires going off sequence prior to our competition caution, the only caution so far that we've had here today. And it looks like the 035 of Brett Pancari, I thought that he was coming down for a regularly scheduled stop, but when he exceeded the 1 minute mark of sitting in his pit box, obviously something a little bit more sinister drew him to pit lane, and it looks like he actually might have already taken the left-hand turn. Actually, in this case here, it would actually be the right-hand turn into the infield, into the garage area, joining the likes of Ashton Schleitz, Luke Reitschoff, Tyler Lannon, Joe Berkey, and Mark Sabedka.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, important point actually to note that it was something I was thinking about earlier on this evening, was that the pit lane here is reversed, isn't it? It's a really good opportunity though, because it's a track with a pit lane that can work in both directions, so it's unique to see a track like that. And look, they do a great job here in Indianapolis in preparing the course in an alternative manner and using a pit lane. Instead of having to build an entirely new pit lane, they just resurface the same pit lane in the opposite direction. Not something you can say about most courses, so that's phenomenal design, phenomenal construction. I was actually just keeping an eye on Jake Poulin, who's just come out in those fresh tires. He's struggling. He's sideways in the grass, cut one of the corners, trying to come back off of the infield section, rejoin the oval, was sideways and in the grass. So he's struggling. I think he's pushing as hard as he possibly can. I think he's very conscious of his scenario in terms of the overall race. And if everyone else has to pit, he's got to make hay while the sun shines. So that's right now for him.
And David Cabrera, who just went a lap down, hitting pit lane, and we saw Seth Noel pitting the lap before. Obviously, I agree with you. I think he's pushing it, but it could also be a case, do you think, for Jake Poulin, with where he was so used to how the car was handling on the old tires that as soon as he had the fresh rubber underneath him, it was, oh, actually, I can have my braking point be here, or I can get back to the throttle here, trying to get back into a rhythm with what he's got underneath him with fresh tires as opposed to what he had for a majority of that run.
Yeah. It's definitely part of it, and I think his shifting points have. I think the biggest issue is the shifting points have changed dramatically, because at the end of the day, if you're changing gear in a completely and utterly different spot, things that's where the rear end gets light, that's where it gets spicy, that's where it gets a little bit harder to control. So that's what's happened to these guys. But I mean, at the end of the day, have a look at this battle up at the top. If none of these guys have to make a pit stop, Somebody's got to throw a move soon. Nobody in this pack has thrown a move for a little while, except for Tyler Gary. I thought I saw Tyler Gary had lost a spot there for a half a moment. So somebody has finally got to decide who's going to make the move. I think these guys are actually fuel saving, Seth. I think its fuel is that close that they've spent the bulk of the race fuel saving, and this move at the lead that we've seen from Blake Reynolds and Brendan Hawken is these guys. Brandon's just like, you know what? Keep punching that hole in the air for me. I'm going to burn up some less fuel.
And right there, maybe they're deciding now it's time to maybe go as they open up the gap from them back to third place. And yeah, we had a pack of 5 there. Also, AJ Henderson had actually reeled in those top 4. And so kind of throw a blanket over our top 5 here. Only about second and 8/10 separating those drivers, which is actually pretty minuscule when you think about it at a road course configuration. It's looking like, unfortunately, we talked last week with third place finisher at Richmond, Sean Butler. We were hoping that that was a sign he was going to be able to start getting things turned around as he was on a bit of a streak of bad luck. Well, the bad luck continues here today. It looks like connection issues have plagued the driver of the 32. Right now, he has dropped down the running order to 31st, has yet to return back to the server. So that's a tough break for a guy that was running just outside of the top 10 around the 11th, 12th position.
Break. I mean, you know, we talked about how difficult the last couple of weeks have certainly been, and it's not been easy for a lot of these drivers, and some of these guys just struggle at road courses. Everyone's got their own, you know, specialities and what they're strong, what they're weak at, and unfortunately for Sean, I mean, it's been a difficult night. Things have not gone his way, and he's going, you know what? I'm happy. I'm happy with how, you know, this is where I want to call it. And, you know, he's reached his limit. That's fine. Knowing where your limits are is a very, very important part about racing. So he's done a good job. It's disappointing at the end of the day, but he'll be back next week, and he'll be out here for vengeance and a better result.
Obviously, with Blake Reynolds out in front, I've made a lot of references to the last win that he had. It wasn't an overall win, but it was still a checkered flag nonetheless in the go-kart road course section of the Tsukuba Nationals. I kind of find it a little bit funny, kind of chuckle to myself, the fact that you take the combination of him and the car he's driving, the 46, Blake Reynolds and the 46 car probably got the most TV time during that go-kart road course race at Tsukuba, based on the fact that Reynolds was, of course, leading a majority of that race, and when Robert Dorn was driving the 46, he probably had the trophy for the most spins in that race. That 46 got focused on a lot, not necessarily facing the correct direction. So pretty interesting that combination turns up 2 weeks later here at the Indianapolis road course, and Brandon Hawken back on him. But one thing I have been observing here with this 89, I've been seeing the back end of his car stepping out just a little bit more often than the 46 of Blake Reynolds. That says to me that Brandon Hawken, he's trying to get back to the throttle sooner, get that corner exit sooner than Blake Reynolds, and it's actually costing him more than it's helping him.
And no, if you actually have a look at the way that both of these guys are driving the cars, they're taking very, very different lines, particularly through the last sector. That 9, 10, 11, 8, 9, 10, 11, the staircase, basically, section at the tail end of this course. I think these guys, Brandon might have the run this time. He's dropped back. He did have a really, really strong exit off of turn 11 and rebuilding back to the straight. So there's an option there that he might have been able to build an overtake down into turn 1. Hasn't gone that way. But yeah, look, Brandon's actually driving the car completely differently. He's taking a narrower exit approach through 9 and 10, which sets him up for a better corner entry, corner exit to turn 11, and then all the way down the straight coming off the infield. So both of these cars, whilst they're quick, and whilst their lap times are very, very similar, they are driving the cars in markedly different fashions. Ultimately, Brandon Hawken seemed to be the guy that was better on tires. I think he's just finally gone to that point where he's going, you know what? I've saved enough tire. It's time to put the hammer down.
These drivers all cannot make it on fuel. It'll be interesting to see where Jake Poulin cycles out. He just got around Rich Jameson for 24th. Now putting the pressure on Lucas Palesel for 23rd place. And last time by, he ran 0.6 of a second faster than the drivers up here inside of the top 5. So obviously the fresh tires are helping him in terms of lap times, but he is mired back in terms of track position. Still on the lead lap, though, as our 28 drivers. Justin Malone was the first car 1 lap down. He was last on pit road. I think it was actually the last lap. Came down pit lane for his pit stop. He is -1 along with David Cabrera. And then Andy Margot is the last car on the racetrack, scored in the 31st position. Again, Sean Butler, as we documented with the connection problems, still has not returned to the server, so it looks like he may very well be finishing 32nd place here tonight in the 32. With things really spread out, not a whole lot of battling going on out there. There are a couple of spots where there's maybe a car length separation. You got Nathan Rabideau and Evan Rice back here battling for 11th, Tyler Williams and Isaac Johnson battling for 15th, but a lot of drivers out here with a lot of daylight out the windshield and out the rearview mirror, just kind of being able to comfortably hit their marks with nobody to, in any way hinder them out the front or pressure them out the back.
Wouldn't necessarily say that. Have a look at Tyler Gary and AJ Henderson going head to head. I mean, these guys have fallen off that 1-2-3 battle, but further back, it's still intense. You still make any sort of mistake and somebody's going to pounce upon you. And for the guys in 7th and 8th, I mean, that's Nate Stewart, Andy Cipriano. Those guys are going quite closely head to head as well. So, look, I mean, there's a lot more daylight, and that's one of the things that a road course does bring. Is larger gaps because you've got a larger track. That's just naturally what ends up happening. But look, I mean, there's still battles, and it's the ultimate end of the day. It's driver versus car for a large majority of the field, and it's difficult to get these cars around here. That's for sure. So expect a few more mistakes, especially in the dying phases of this race, and potentially some more battles will crop up.
Next time around here, it's going to be 5 laps to go for Blake Reynolds, 3 car lengths back to Brandon Hawken, who actually loses some more ground there out of NASCAR turn 1, but road course turn 14, and then it's about 5 car lengths back to Parker White, who for a brief moment had actually reeled Brandon Hawken in for 2nd place. Hawken has left the 195 and tries to get back to the bumper of the 46, so it may be these 3 drivers to settle it out for the victory. Reynolds looking for his 6th win on the season, Hawken looking for his 2nd, Parker White looking for his 1st on the year.
Great opportunity for a lot of these guys as well, to really get themselves all the way back up in there and get a strong result. I mean, it's like I said, difficult courses over the last few weeks, but a difficult season at large, and any opportunity you've got to run a clean race like a lot of these guys have and put the car up there and be quick, it's a confidence-inducing moment. And I think this is a really strong opportunity for Parker White to just take that confidence. Ultimately, you'll take a 3rd place when you look at the nature of this race and how it's played out, but he's still got an opportunity here to put the 195, potentially on the top step of the rostrum as well.
That's his 2nd start in the season. He made his series debut back during the Tsukuba Nationals. Through the average of the 3 races that he took part in, he finished overall 19th place, and obviously running much better here today. As mentioned, trying to get his 1st career win, but I mean, how about a chance for his 1st career podium as well here in only his 2nd start?
Yeah, great opportunity. I mean, this doesn't come up every day. And you got to have a look at the race scenario as well. AJ Henderson, I believe, has finally gotten by Tyler Gary. That's held AJ up massively, and he's fallen off of these guys. Ultimately, at one point in the race, there's a very good chance that could have been Parker that was mired back there. He'd be running in 5th place and falling like a rock. Or he'd be in AJ Henderson's shoes. He's gotten removed from this lead pack, and it's been quite difficult. Look, Seth, 4 laps to go. Have a look at how Brandon's now driving this car. He looks to have just all of a sudden stepped it up another notch. There's a couple moments already on this lap that I've seen him be very, very close to the rear bumper of that 46 machine. I think he's looking for an overtake probably either this lap or the next one.
Now, obviously, as we mentioned, the gentleman's rule in effect for these drivers, but with that in mind, is there a point, if you're Brandon Hawken, that you just move the 46 out of your way?
I don't think so. I don't think he needs to. I think he's got the skill, the talent, and the ability, and he's been looking after tires, saved enough fuel, so these drivers are definitely making it home from here. So, look, I think he's got an opportunity to just win it outright. I don't think the bump and run is even going to come into the picture.
David Cabrera, lap machine back on pit road, but it's looking, at least for the time being, that at least the top 20 are all going to make it on what they started this second stint with when we had that competition caution. Andy Margot going to move out of the way of the race leaders. That might have hindered Reynolds off the 13th corner there for a brief moment. Hawken trying to close up the gap there. Again, about 4 car lengths between those two, then another 5 car lengths back to Parker White. As going to hit the line is Blake Reynolds. 3 laps to go here at the Indianapolis road course, and 3 drivers. Oh, got a car off course there. I think that was the 51 of Kyle Lawrence Short out of harm's way.
Good spot.
Man, I mean, these are the 3 guys, it looks like, that are going to settle it out for this victory. And I'm watching that 195 of Parker White back there, because he hasn't exactly gotten up here and put the pressure on the 89 again. I think he's kind of in wait-and-see mode to see what takes place amongst the top 2.
Yeah, but there also comes a point from his point of view that he's also got to get up here and have a crack. Because if he's just waiting for these guys to go head-to-head, one of them to make a mistake, one of them to make an error, and then pounce then, he's going to run out of time. So I think he's had a strong first half of this lap, a very, very strong first half of this lap. He's taken 0.3 of a second out of Brendan Hawken. He's definitely got the pace. He's definitely got the ability, or else he wouldn't be here. I think he's now mentally just going to say, I've got to go for it.
Blake Reynolds now going to catch up to another car. That's Rich Jameson, who we actually just showed you moments ago. Had trouble over there in, I believe it was turn 1, as he looped it around, and now he's going to fall into the clutches of the race leaders. Currently the last car on the lead lap, and more than likely within the next lap might be the first car 1 lap down. 2 laps to go as they hit the front straightaway for Reynolds. Again, 5 car lengths back to Hawkins, but it looks like Hawkins, as you mentioned, gets that real nice toe with the draft down the front straightaway, closes that gap right back up by the time they get to turn 1.
It's twofold. It's not just the draft. The draft is obviously important, but it's also that exit and how he's really prioritizing the car, the way that he drives it through the last sector. Oh, I tell you what, is this lap traffic going to play a part here?
It very well might, as Jameson now gets out of the way of Blake Reynolds, and he'll let the top 3 on by. There is going to be a challenge. 2 drivers right. Oh, he made a little contact there, but unfortunately it's a left-hander next, which gives the advantage back to the 46. Hawkins looks to cross him over, tries to stay to the right rear, couldn't quite do it there.
It's getting tight. It is really getting tight. Like you said, if anything happens from here, Parker White's going to be the one that picks up all the pieces and says, hey, look, I'll take a victory. So these guys are going to get it clean. They're going to get a 1 to go this next time by. So it is tight. It is close. If he's going to have a crack, it's got to be now. And have a look at how Brandon gets off this last corner. This is going to decide a lot of this race.
And look how Parker White is now closed up as well. You can pretty much put the top 3 within 5 car lengths of each other here, heading back onto the speedway section of NASCAR's 1 and 2. It'll be the white flag this time by Blake Reynolds, looking for his league-leading 6th win on the season and 5th at a road course this year. Can he hold him off for 14 more corners?
Tell you what, I think Parker White got the wall off of 13, NASCAR 2. So I think he might have just overdriven it slightly, but he's pushing. You've got to have a crack. You can't let this slip by the wayside. If you're this close and you don't have a crack, you'll be kicking yourself. Oh, he's drifting it.
Hangs on to it, though, as Hawkins trying to close up the gap, loses a little bit of ground there, but he's been really good here through the middle sections of the course. Back to the bumper of the 46, again loses a little bit of momentum on corner exit. He drives it in deep, but he gives up that time when he tries to get back to the throttle. He's going to have a couple of more shots here as we're halfway through this final lap.
Keep your eyes peeled on Parker. I think Parker's in a really good opportune seat right now, but look at Blake Reynolds. He's driven this car beautifully for the first couple of sectors, and I think it might be all she wrote.
The wins that Blake Reynolds had previously coming into this race, they were all in a Toyota Camry, the 62 out of Speed Incorporated. Here today, looks like he may be closing out the deal for First 4 Racing, piloting that number 46. He started on the pole. He's led pretty much every lap aside from the ones that Jake Poulin led with the pit strategy. It's been a dominating performance here today, and it's going to result in a victory at the Indianapolis road course for Blake Reynolds.
But what a final lap from all 3 guys at the top end. It's so difficult. All of these guys are driving the cars near identically. There's just no way that any of them could be separated by enough to allow an overtake. It was a phenomenal race. Everyone was pushing to the absolute max. Everyone was doing everything they possibly could. And at the end of the day, it just wasn't to be for a lot of these guys.
And of course, as we've only got a handful of races left here during the regular season, with Blake Reynolds, a Cup Series regular, winning, that's going to put even more importance on drivers that are trying to point their way into the playoff grid down around the cut line. But Blake Reynolds, he's going to get to burn them down one more time here in the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals, with 6th victory on the season in the Mug and Bun. I knew that I was going to butcher that name at some point in this race. The Mug and Bun Grand Prix at the Brickyard.
The Muck and Bun Grand Prix? No, it's the Mud and Bun Grand Prix. Look, I mean, what a race though. It was difficult for everyone. It was nobody had an easy time of things, and look, at the end of the day, Jake made an impressive pit strategy. Left him slightly fuel compromised, which is why you've seen him take an extra stop. Have a look at the 89. Look at him drift that thing up. That is car control.
That reminds me of what he did back at Tsukuba when he won at the full course. He was drifting around the corners there. That's typical Brandon. He loves to do that.
It's a guy having fun at the end of the day. I think he's just gonna. Yeah, I was about to say, is he gonna drive this backwards down the main straight? No, just showing us a swift old J turn. Where did he learn to drive? Need for Speed? Have to be Need for Speed.
Fast Racing League, I can tell you that much. Fast Racing League and the FTF Air 2003 series. I've raced with him quite a number of times there. Great guy. I loved as well. I saw there a little bit of a side-by-side down a couple of the straight sections on the back portion of this road course. Race leader Blake Reynolds and Jonathan Oates, the points leader here in the Grand National Series. And I kind of cast my memory back to when we talked with Oates back at the road course of, I believe it was, maybe it was Tsukuba. Can't remember. Oh no, actually I think it was at Rockingham, talking about going into Tsukuba, and he said, man, I'm not the best when it comes to road courses. I'm always learning, but I always try to at least finish the best I can. Very under the radar day there for Jonathan Oates. We hardly talked about him, but he's going to bring it home in the 6th position. So for a guy that's already got a win in the bank, is trying to win the regular season championship and get those bonus points when the playoffs are reformatted, I mean, great job for him.
Yeah, you need to do as well as a driver is you recognize when you come to a course that you're weak at, it's damage limitation. It is so important to be a great damage limitation driver, because every race of the season, at some point, you are gonna have a mistake, an off week, something where things just happen that are completely and utterly out of your control. And what you need to do as a driver is recognize, hey, I need to underdrive the car. I need to give myself the opportunity to beat a whole bunch of guys who are going to make a whole bunch of mistakes. I need to make sure that when those mistakes come, when all of that happens, that I'm there to pick up all the pieces. And that's what he's done here tonight. He's driven maybe not the flashiest race, maybe not the quickest race, but he's only 15, nearly 16 seconds off of the race win at the end of the day. And that is a phenomenal performance from him. He's done everything he needs to do to effectively maintain that championship lead. And there's only 5 guys that are going to be scoring more points than him tonight.
All right, you talk about not driving a flashy race. Rate this. Coming down pit road by Blake Reynolds, throwing that car in reverse, and I thought he might try and park into his pit stall in reverse. Well, he may still try, as he burns it down there right in front of that number 1 pit stall that he gained with winning the pole here tonight.
Oh man, he's celebrating, he's having a fun time, and that's what you want to see from all the drivers as well, is look, how often do you get to win a race? Well, how often do you get to win a race when your name's Blake Reynolds? Apparently every second week is the correct response. But still, look, you got to make sure that you celebrate in the right ways and that you enjoy yourself, because that's, at the end of the day, this is out here, and we're out here to have fun, have a blast, turn some race cars on some tracks that they may not necessarily always go to, and everyone in the entire field. The thing that strikes me about FTF is you've got drivers from all across the skill and ability spectrum. And I think you can say to every single one of them, they've come out with the right attitude, they've come out, they've practiced, they're prepared, now they get to have the fun.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to find out just how much fun these drivers had For the moment, we don't have our third place finisher, Parker White, on hand. We'll see if we can talk with him a little bit later, but we do have our runner-up finisher here tonight, Brandon Hawken. Hey, Brandon, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Going good. Well, I mean, up here in the booth, it looked like you guys were having a blast. Saw you slipping and sliding around out there. Not a whole lot of banking at this track for you drivers to be able to get that rear grip. So what was it like inside the cockpit? How much fun were you having? And what was it like, that battle there between you and the 46? Because it looked like it was taking place all race long.
Oh yeah, that was a blast. Yeah, there was pretty much no grip at all. So yeah, for the majority of the run, we were really having to save our stuff. But then once we started using it, they fell off so quick. So yeah, it was really really fun managing the tires and trying to go fast at the same time. And yeah, Blake had the same idea. He was saving, and then in the last little bit of the race there, I tried getting all I could there, but couldn't quite get him. Man, that was just that was a lot of fun, and yeah, I mean, it's always there's always a really good race to be had here at FTF on road courses. So yeah, that was just a blast.
And I think the thing that strikes me is that we were talking up in here about how when you come to some of the courses that the FTF has actually gone to this season, I mean, at the end of the day, what was going through your head when the schedule shows up and we're going to Tsukuba, and then you follow that up with tracks like Indy this week, and then a couple of weeks from now we're going to Bathurst. Now, I'm excited for Bathurst, don't get me wrong, but these cars are not made for this kind of racing.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah, I looked at the schedule before the season started, and I planned out all the races I was gonna do. And yeah, this is probably the best section of races for sure coming up. Yeah, we got Bathurst coming up here soon, and that's gonna be really interesting. If the whole field doesn't get taken out up in the skinny parts up in the mountains. So yeah, that's going to be a really really interesting one to see. And yeah, it's there's a lot of unknowns going into it, like yeah, just like how the car is going to react, and like how we'll have to manage the tires and everything. It's you know, because yeah, it's stock cars at Bathurst, it's something that you don't really see too often. And you know, they're tough enough to drive around a regular road course, so going over there, it's got to be tricky for sure.
Brandon, I know that hindsight's 2020, but it's kind of interesting because everybody knew coming into this race there was going to be that competition caution at lap 15. The pits were going to close once the leader completed lap 13, and we only saw one driver actually elect to kind of jump the gun, gain the track position by coming down pit road before the pits were closed. But you were right there in proximity with the 46, more than likely could have gotten onto pit lane before he had actually gone around and completed that 13th lap. Did that at any point enter into your head to maybe then position you ahead of him on the upcoming restart?
Yeah, it does a lot of the time. It's just so tricky though, because you don't know, like, because like what one lap of difference on the tires makes such a huge difference. So I was thinking like, I think I can be fast enough to maybe pass him, on equal tires, but yeah, usually like just the one lap older tires, they really make a really big difference. So yeah, I was thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll just I'll just come in when everybody else does. But yeah, it's something to think about for the future, because yeah, you never know, like it might just be able to hang on. But I also did think that you know, if I was in the lead, I probably would have burned my stuff up a lot faster, because Blake's really good at managing his tires. And yeah, I feel like if I was ahead of him, I probably would have burned my stuff up pretty quickly.
Well, obviously, Brandon, you've shown us just how good you are at the road courses. Not only this season, but we also saw you run really well at the road courses last season, the Grand National Series as well. You, of course, had that win at the last road course race at Tsukuba, winning the overall race there with those 3 stints of the Tsukuba Nationals. So, you know, great run again for you here tonight. Another road course runner-up, and we're going to now give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, just like thank you guys in the broadcast booth, everybody at FTF for putting this thing on. It's a really fun series, especially GNS. It's really great. And yeah, just everybody who raced with us tonight, that was a lot of fun, with Blake and Parker especially. And yeah, looking forward to the races coming up. Should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, that's Brandon Hawken, P2 here tonight at the Brickyard, the road course configuration. Congratulations, Brandon. Best of luck to you in the upcoming weeks. Pretty certain we're going to be seeing you in a couple weeks' time when we head to Bathurst, so looking forward to that.
Oh, for sure. Thank you, guys.
Looks like we still don't have our third place finisher, Parker White, here, so let's go right down to Victory Lane and talk with Blake Reynolds. Hey, Blake, it's gotten set up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
And great run for you here tonight, but, we kind of went over the fact that you have been absolutely lights out when it comes to the road courses this season. No surprise that you had that machine up there on the pole and up at the front pretty much the entirety of this race, but not exactly a runaway. 89 and the 195 there at the end kind of keeping you honest. So how difficult is it to run your own race while all the time you've got some drivers looming large in your rearview mirror, and from what we heard from Brandon Hawken, also playing some pit strategy to make sure you made it that second stint after the comp caution on fuel?
Yeah, I mean, I just knew that second run to the end, I was good on fuel. I don't know what Hawken was doing. I don't know if he short fueled or something, but I was definitely good on fuel that whole time. I was more worried about the tires, just keeping them below a certain temperature threshold that would keep the grip in them. And really, I was braking a lot earlier than people. Hawken was gaining so much time on me in some of these slower corners, but he would lock up his tires. And in iRacing, you typically just don't want to lock up your tires. It just heats them up unnecessarily, wears them maybe 0.5% or so. So I just got in there really easy, especially in those hairpins, just trying to keep the tires on it. And anytime he got close to me, I'd push a little bit and just match his pace.
Well, I mean, that speaks to just complete and utter race control. You had everything in control, under control. I mean, it's been a difficult season. The road courses. We were just talking to Brandon about how difficult the schedule is and the quality of tracks. It's one of those seasons whereby you look at the schedule and I would be looking at this schedule, and I'm a road course guy, and I'm going, I'm not going to Tsukuba. That is difficult, like you would not believe. And there are quite a few courses throughout the season, and it's one of those amazing seasons though where we get to take these cars to those tracks and just have an absolute blast. How much fun was out there tonight, and how much fun do you expect to have at Bathurst in 2 weeks? By the way, I'm an Aussie, so you better talk nice about Bathurst.
I love Bathurst. I've ran the Bathurst 1000 a couple times. I used to run a league up here called the Major Series. And toward the end of their season, they always had a V8 supercar race. They did a Bathurst 500K instead of 1000, but that was always a fun race, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm teaming up with Brian Mercury on the 62 car there this week, or at Bathurst. But this race was definitely a solid driving experience. That's what I was telling the FTF admins after the race, or even before the race started. Like the set was right. It had the handling. It was a little loose to start, and you had to build up those temps. But once they got into that operating range, this car drove fantastic. You could just kind of ride, and it would just do what you wanted. You could push it that tiniest little bit, make some pace, but you could also save, and it wouldn't hurt you too bad. And I'm assuming, Bathurst, while that track's quite intimidating and punishing on cars, I think this car might do just fine if we get that set up right.
Oh, you mentioned about the 62, and of course, in the previous 5 races that you've won, that's been in that 62 car out of Speed Incorporated. We saw you here tonight, though, driving that 46 for Robert Dorman in a Chevrolet, and of course, last season when we covered the Grand National Series, you were in that very familiar number 3 Chevrolet. So, how good did it feel to be back in a Camaro? And did it feel any different, or feel kind of the same?
It felt kind of the same. Typically, especially in the Cup car. Sometimes when I practice for the Coke Series, I click the wrong one. I'm too lazy to load the session again. So I'll just put the set in the folder and just go rip it. And usually that engine noise messes me up. But here on the road courses, we don't typically turn a whole lot of RPM, especially in these slower corners. So it doesn't really bother me too much. It's pretty easy to switch as long as my camera and settings are all the same in all the cars. But yeah, Robert Dorman, he was suspended tonight. After Richmond, I didn't exactly see what happened, but he asked me one night. It was like, "Hey, you want to run my 46 car?" And I said, "Sure." And then we got someone fun to be in the 62, Mark Specca. Unfortunately, he wrecked out tonight, but our owner's points lead is quite large, so we're not too worried about that. You might see some other fun people in that 62 car coming up at some of the races before the playoffs.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to that. Blake Reynolds, his 6th win on the season, his 5th overall win at a road course this year. And of course, with Bathurst, the Charlotte Roval, and Belle Isle coming up, certainly expecting to see him up at the front in those as well, as he's been absolutely dominant when it comes to the twists and turns of the road course configurations during the course of this schedule. Blake, we're going to now turn the microphone over to you, let you do some victory lane thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Sure thing. I'm going to have to take a look at Robert's car here to see what sponsors we got on it. TobyChristie.com, of course. K2Sauce.com. One More Moment. Axalta MCM. Sirius XM. But then, of course, Speed Inc. and the 62 car for our owner's title. And all the FTF staff and you guys for broadcasting this. You guys do a good job putting on a solid broadcast, and I can't wait to go back and watch it.
That's Blake Reynolds. He gets to celebrate here tonight in Victory Lane at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the Mug and Bun Grand Prix at the Brickyard. Congratulations, Blake. Best of luck to you here in the upcoming races. I'm certain we're going to be seeing you in 2 weeks' time at Bathurst, so wish you luck there.
Thank you.
Just before we get rid of Blake, I just want to pose a question to you, Blake. When you've got to drive the car smooth, and you don't want to say butter because butter's not smooth enough, what do you say? We decided the other night that when you're trying to drive a smooth car, it's a vanilla milkshake. What would you make?
Ooh, well, it depends. When you go to Sonic, that thing's hard as a rock, and they give you the tiny straw. But then you go to a place like Steak and Shake, where it's basically a liquid. I would agree with that.
Anything else?
It has to be
Anything else? Smooth
whipped
custard?
cream?
Whipped cream? There you go. Smooth as whipped cream, baby.
It's smooth, but the slightest bit of interaction with it, and it cuts right through it. And that's basically have to drive these cars. You got to be real delicate. It's very, very easy to mess it up.
Oh my word, Seth.
I don't know. That's probably right.
No. It's we talked about it. We were commentating on another league the other day, and it was like, these guys are going to drive these cars like butter, buttery smooth. Butter's not smooth enough, and the milkshake has turned into a thing. So
milkshake's good, but I driving these cars, I'd picture whipped cream.
There you go. So we were wrong the whole time, Seth.
apparently so. We're gonna have to
on top of the ice cream.
Yeah, it does. It's a great combination. Hey, you can mix it in. Make the ice cream a little bit more fluffier. Anyway, congrats once again there, Blake, on the victory, and go and enjoy it.
Yep, thank y'all.
Actually, I put whipped cream on my milkshake, so
I was about to say, yeah.
Years ahead of you on that one.
Yeah. So yeah, look, I mean, whipped cream in the milkshake, so it's creamy, it cuts right through. We got the vanilla in there. It's amazing. I need a milkshake, Seth. Look what you've done to me.
Well, thanks to everybody that tuned in tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage of the Mug and Bun Grand Prix at the Brickyard. Next week, these drivers are going to be heading to the Irish Hills. Michigan International Speedway plays host to race number 25 on the schedule. Of course, the Speedway/Super Speedway, 2 miles in length, and I mean, we usually see them go 3 and 4 wide at short tracks. I hesitate to think just how wide they'll be willing to risk it at a track as spacious as Michigan next week, but it should be a good one nonetheless as we continue to get closer and closer to winding down the regular season here and getting closer to building up our playoff grid here for the Grand National Series. But Scott, it's been a blast here tonight at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Great road course racing. Appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Oh man, again, absolutely love it. I'm enjoying commentating at the moment. This is so much fun. It's great. It's awesome. I'm loving life, Seth. I'll be back here again.
Absolutely. Thanks to everybody that tuned in tonight once again. Hope you guys join us next week at the Michigan International Speedway for the next race here for the Grand National Series, the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. Green flag next Saturday night, scheduled to fly at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For Scott Rankin, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.